speak English, okay. Buongiorno, che sì che può parlare italiano, è una broma. No. I would love to speak Italian. I love Italy. I love Italian, but I need to spend a bit more time in Italy before this happens. So, yes. So my name is Isabelle. I work for a company called WSO2. Who is WSO2? It's okay? Yeah. So WSO2 basically, who has heard about WSO2? A couple of people. Well, okay. I have some marketing work to do. All right. So basically, what we provide is an entire platform, middleware platform, which is entirely open source. Everything we deliver is under Apache license. Why is this important to you? Because it means that anybody can basically reuse that code and has free access to it. It's one of the most freedom, let's say, licenses inside the open source world. I'll get into more details on the different components, but basically we provide integration products, API management products, and very recently we also announced the first open source mobile management products. So for doing dealing with problems such as bring your own device inside the enterprise. So you have to manage the phones and tablets of your employees, and how do you do this in a secure way. So we have a new set of products to do this that we announced very recently and just came out a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so we heard very briefly from Jenny about IaaS. We'll talk about this a bit. You guys are going to talk about SUSE Cloud and the infrastructure. So we build on top of that. We built a platform as a service, which typically goes on top of an infrastructure as a service, which is called Stratos. Okay, we have our enterprise version of that called the private pass. So that just go to the next. So what do we offer? Okay, so all the customers we work with have this big problem, which is I need to get everybody to talk to everybody. This is what we call our platform enabling a connected business. What does that mean? Well, you need to have the ability to have your internal users talking to your systems, your customers talking to you talking to your partners talking to you, right? Everybody has to talk to everybody. What does that mean is that you need an infrastructure which allows you to actually enable that conversation. Usually what happens is you have a lot of different systems, you have legacy systems that you have to talk to, you have now cloud applications that you have to talk to. Many people use, I don't know, Salesforce, for example, that's the very typical one, or CRM in the cloud, or Concur, or Expanses. There's a lot of applications now in the cloud that would typically not install in my company, right? If I start a new company, probably I'm not going to install SAP right away, right? It's a bit too big for me, right? So I'm going to go and use an external system to do that, which I will need to integrate from my company. So cloud application outside, internal systems, all of this you need to integrate in a synchronous, so something dumping to something in a synchronous way, but also in asynchronous way, right? There's still a lot of integration based on interchanging messages, interchanging files, a lot of that still, and we need to enable all of that. So that is the integration part of our platform. The typical products in that category would be an enterprise service bus, would be business process management, will be a messaging system. I'm sure you all know IBM MQ, that's what I'm talking about, okay? As well as this specific thing we have here called data services, which allows you basically to cleanly expose any type of data as services. Something I forgot to say from the beginning, one of the key principles our company was built on is SOA. When we started 8 years ago, right, this was when SOA architecture came up. So to the contrary of the IBMs and the Oracles and the SAPs and the TCOs that had to catch up on this architecture, we embedded that architecture principle right into our products from the beginning. We had that luxury because we started from scratch. Okay? So in our platform, everything is a service. The idea is that once you have exposed something as a service, then you can reuse it from anywhere. That's really the principle. Next. So now comes APIs. Let me ask you $1 million question, or $1 million euro, because we're in Italy. Okay. Can somebody tell me the difference between a service and an API?
Italian, of course.
In Italian, of course. That's no problem. I can understand Italian. You can say it in Italian. La differenza entre servizio e API. No? Nobody? Alright. So you've all heard about this big API management movement, right? Everybody now, if you don't do 10 years ago, if you didn't do SOA, you were nobody, everybody had to have an ESB, right? Now, if you don't have APIs, it's the same thing. Everybody needs to have an API, right? Well, you had APIs before, frankly. They're called services, right? Now, the difference between the two, and it's actually a very clean difference, is you have to see the service as what you do internally, and the API is what you expose to the outside world. When I'm saying outside world, it could be really outside, like anybody in the internet coming and consuming your API, but also internally, actually. We have demonstrated pretty much that if you consider your internal consumers as your customers, it really makes, it's because I'm lined up with the, it really makes the consumption of APIs much better and much easier, okay? So basically the idea is the following. First of all, you take what you have and you make services out of it, something consumable. The second phase is to actually make APIs out of that. So something, a clean interface that people can come and consume in a managed way. That's why all those solutions are called API management. What does that mean? That means that your API is under control. You need to be able to know who is consuming them. Do I respect the SLA, basically, that I have given them? Is this API taking half a second, or is it taking 10 milliseconds to answer? You need to know that, right? Is this user consuming all they should consume, or only 10%, or do they need, 10,000 calls and I'm giving them 5,000? That's the management side of it. On top of, next, the security part of it, which is very important. Right? When you expose something to the outside world, or even internally, it needs to be very easy to consume that API, but you need to also provide that information, that capability, in a secure way. Right? What does that mean? It needs to be secure for you, in the sense that you want to only get people that have the authentication, the rights to come in, basically. We're authenticated, we're authorized, we have the right credentials, the right attributes, I would say, to actually consume and get that API. And also for them, they need to make sure they're actually talking to you. That's very important. Security works both ways, right? Where you're connecting to your bank over the internet, of course they want to know it's you, but you better be sure it's them. Because you don't want to put your credentials in something which is not your bank. So that works both ways, right? In terms of security. So we have also a set of, identity management products that blend into our API products to allow you to securely expose those APIs to the outside world, okay? And the last angle on this, thank you, is the monitoring. This is really critical. You all heard about big data, right? That's another thing you have to do, you know that. Right? You have to do APIs, you have to do mobile, you have to do cloud, and you have to do big data. So you have all this data in your systems residing here. Do you analyze it, right? So the angle here is really to say, okay, I have those services, I've exposed those APIs, I've secured them, all right. Now those people call me, I need to capture all that information and do something nice out of it, right? Which can be reporting. So what I was mentioning before, you are going to create that project of API management, let's say, exposing APIs or services internally. Monday morning you need to give a nice report to the boss that says, all this investment you've made in exposing all this stuff, this is what it's giving us. We have this level of reuse of all those APIs. You have to demonstrate that. This is the SLA we're giving to all those customers. This is, what it gives you a view inside what's happening in the system. That's a really important thing. This is rather passive, basically. What it allows you to do is to have a vision of what's happening, but not to react to it. So in our platform, what we've done is we blended activity monitoring, which is the BAM part, like the analytics that you have in here, with reacting in a real time to certain patterns. I'm sure you heard of complex event processing, right? So the idea, the typical thing is fraud or detecting. Like every time I'm traveling now, I don't know if you have that problem. Every time I'm traveling, my Gmail doesn't work anymore. Because what they do now is they detect you're in a different country than your normal country, and they don't let me read my mail, basically. How does that work? Well, they received my connection through the mail, my client mail, and they say, oh, it has a country in there. So, oh, you're in Rome. What the hell are you doing in Rome? Right, no, you can't read your mail from Rome, right? And I can't connect to my mail at all until I go to the website and actually prove that it's me, that I'm in Rome, and yes, I want to read my mail. All right? So this is real-time detection. So basically, you detect something and you take an action, which is basically block me from accessing my mail. So that's the typical, I would say, detection of fraud or suspicious activity. But you could also do very positive things out of detection of this kind of thing, such as, oh, rather than blocking my mail, right? Telling me, oh, you're in Italy, right? Maybe that's better for telecom companies. Telling me, oh, you're connecting, you've been sending like 10 SMS already from Italy. This is really going to cost you money because you don't have the right profile and the right options on your telecom contract. So why don't you contract this thing for the rest of the week so it will cost you less, right? This kind of things, you can detect those patterns and take a decision out of those patterns, which can be, this is going to be used a lot in marketing and retail, for example. The retailers are very interested in this kind of stuff, right? Because the minute, that's going to be hell for you. They're working on really interesting things, right? Such as you enter a shop with your phone, they know where you are. You know you have entered, Zara. You have Zara in Italy, right? Yeah. It's a very famous Spanish brand. Okay? You enter Zara, they know you're a Zara customer because they know who you are, and they're gonna have somebody come right to you and say, I know who you are, I'll take you there, I know those are their favorite things. The only way they can do this is because they capture all this data, analyze it, and make a decision out of it. So that's really a key part of the platform. Go ahead. And the last part is publishing and socializing. You all have a smartphone, right? Right, pretty much. Everybody is installing apps on their phones, right? Pretty much. Well, you don't? Somebody is saying no. I'll put apps on my phone, okay? But we're living in the apps world. You have apps on your computers, you have apps on your phones, on your tablets, everywhere. So now people want this also from an enterprise point of view. And many customers came to us saying, okay, I'm creating all those applications internally. I used to work at IBM for the longest time, 15 years, okay? In IBM, we had internally something like 6,500 applications. Those are internal applications I can use as an IBM, okay? Nobody knew about this. We knew the number. But where to find them, that's a different story, right? Why? Because there was no easy way I could go somewhere and say, oh, I'm looking for an application from IBM that does X and Y. Show that to me. The same way you do this all the time on your phone, on your store. So a lot of customers came to us and said, we want to build our own app store. We don't want to use, of course we can't use the Apple ones or the Google one. But the same way there is a Google store or an Apple store, I want to build my company store. I want to build my company store for my APIs, for my applications, for my mobile applications, for my projects, for my whatever. So we built this generic store, we call it the enterprise store, which basically allows you to put any type of asset in there, which allows you to socialize that information within the enterprise. Okay? So now there will be one place in the company you have to go to where you can find things. I'm actually now deploying this internally in WSO2 for presentations and marketing material. We have 300 employees now, right? If I want to socialize my product presentations, again, I'm the product manager of everything, right? Socialize my product presentations, the logos people have to use, the graphics people have to use. I have one place where people will have to go. They can search, they can tag, they can find anything they want, right? And it's much easier to manage. You manage all the metadata and all the information there. Okay? So that's theory. Hello. So let's start with practice now. Talking about customer we've been working with, so SUSE, ourselves, and a good partner of ours called Janlo in the Netherlands. This is a company who's actually doing research on epilepsy. And what they had to do basically was to integrate with many different partners and open their systems to other research partners so they can come and consume the results of some of the investigation that they've been doing. Okay? So what they've been doing is building a system where they used our enterprise service bus and the API management solutions, as well as the monitoring solutions, to expose all that information outside. All of this is running on top of SUSE Enterprise Linux servers in a virtualized environment, which is VMware EXI, and which is accessible from the outside world. So now they have instant view into all the different systems that they have, and which consumption each of the partners they have is making of all this information about epilepsy. Okay, now all those products, one thing which is really specific about the WSO2 is that all those products are running on a single platform that we call Carbon, like the carbon, right? The idea was the following, right? When you take products across a different platform, we have like 18 products now, plus the cloud products. What we wanted is to give a single unified experience across those products. So if you use the enterprise service bus, if you use the application server, if you use the identity server products, when you open the console and you work with the product, you cluster it, you secure it, you work with logging, like the whole operation side of it, you will have a similar experience. So you don't have to learn something again. Plus, every time we want to enhance this stuff, we just have to enhance it in one place. And then every single product will benefit from it. So really, one of the key characteristics, I'm talking about this because it's really also what allows us to very quickly deliver new products. We've built 18 products over the past 7 years. That's a quick rhythm. Okay? It's a very quick rhythm, and the reason we're doing this is because a new product pretty much is 70% is the platform, and 30% are specific things for that specific product. Okay? So that's a key characteristic. The other characteristic of that platform, called Carbon, is we wanted from day one, remember we were born 7-8 years ago, there's also like cloud also emerging, and being what we call cloud native. So making sure that all our products not only work on-premise, so I take the zip file from our website, you download it, you unzip it, and it runs, okay? But also it can run in a cloud environment as a service, okay? So inside that platform, we also built it such as any product will actually run also as a service inside a cloud environment. Just go to the next. So you can basically take any of the artifacts that you create for our product, say an ESB application, right? And you can test it and develop it on premise on your system, like your developers can do that, and then deploy it into our PaaS as a service, in our infrastructure as a service, probably as a service. Platform as a service, I'm sorry. In our platform as a service, okay? So it's the exact same code, and you choose when you deploy where you want to deploy it. It is not a characteristic when you actually create it, okay? It's really a characteristic of choice of deployment, do that. So as you see here, we have on-premise, we have private cloud with a PaaS. I'm going to get this in a second, and also we have our public cloud. So if I talk a bit about cloud, so of course we have all this platform and all those products, and a lot of customers came to us and said, listen, the main problem we have is the following. As Janet was saying, is this split between the development world, which is producing things, they throw it over the wall to the ops guys, who take it, do something with it, they don't like it, so they send it back over the wall, and that goes like this, right? So those two worlds are really completely separated. And we need a way to unify this. So, plus the other issue is, it's very difficult for our developers to get started because they have to set up all the environment, like install the products, make them run, create a new database, whatever. If the ops guys have to do this for them, it can take ages because they have to open a ticket to make, we talked to UBS, for example, in Wall Street, and they were telling us from the minute a new developer comes into the company to when they can actually do something, it takes 2 months. Because they have to open all those tickets and all those processes, and finally after 2 months they can work. That is, they have something installed on their machine and they can work, right? So really they don't want that. What they want is, as part of the onboarding of a new employee, they get, provisioned into a system that just gives them all that information and all the structure for them, right? So behind the scenes, this is a platform as a service where you come, you just log in. We'll talk about this in a second, but the idea is you log in and you will have an entire system provision for you to start working, okay? So of course, you can't throw away the old stuff. Actually, the working stuff, we call it old, but this is what maintains your company, right? You have this in there. It's the traditional databases, it's the KICS, it's the MQs, it's the IMS, it's the all those SAPs and all traditional systems that you've been using. You need to continue to use that, but you need to expose them in a way that you can actually take advantage of that information from new applications, okay? And merge that, as I was saying before, with some maybe other things which are in new systems. So it is really important to have something in the middle. That's where the API management solution is playing a critical role of being able to expose all that information as APIs that you can then use from anywhere, right? From new applications. And assemble application from all this reusable data and new information as well. Once you've created your application, as I was mentioning, then you're going to socialize them inside that store, right? So that everybody knows within the company that some new applications, some new APIs have been created, and they're being socialized there. So we call that responsive IT, because the idea is to make really the IT environment much more agile than it is today through this tooling. So what do you need to do that, right? You need to be, so the first point is really critical. If I have to open a ticket and wait for 1 week for somebody to actually provision a database, that is not efficient. I need to be able to go somewhere as a user, of course, with the limitations of my role and whatever, right? Provision a database because I need it right away to create a new application. Anyway, even if you don't permit that today in a company, the internet and things are such done in a way that what people are going to do, they're going to download it anyway. They're going to download MongoDB, MySQL, they're going to download Tomcat, they're going to download what they need, and they're going to work, right? Because they have to deliver. So if it takes too much time, they'll go around it. This is what we call long tail applications, right? Those applications have been created on their own frameworks, on their own system, which are completely, or shadow IT is another word for it, right? Because it's kind of done on the side of the corporate IT, right? So you need to enable that to get them on board on the corporate IT. Scalability, that's very important, right? From a cloud environment, you want the system to scale with the load and not provision a system for basically the highest peak you can get, right? You want it to grow and shrink as your requests come in and your system comes in. Of course, multi-tenancy, be able to extend this environment, okay? So all of this, the first four, we're delivering with this platform as a service, right? Which we call private PaaS, okay? Which is private PaaS. This is based on a project, actually, we had this product called Stratos, and we entirely donated this to the Apache Foundation about five months ago, okay? So this is all like open now. We have SUSE on board. We have Cisco actually working on us on this as well. So this is getting really a powerful backup, I would say. We're trying to get some more really big partners behind the scenes to adopt this as their corporate PaaS, basically, right? As the base PaaS that they're going to work with. So you need the PaaS. If you have a PaaS, a private as a service, you need an infrastructure as a service, the thing which is going to manage the system. And this is where SUSE Cloud comes into the picture. I'll let the SUSE team play. Go back. Sorry. Explain this. All right. Then there is an extension of that, what I was talking about, which is applications on top of that. So I need an environment where I can come and very easily provision an environment for me to work with, create an application, create a database, open issues on top of that application, all of this all integrated. You go next, please. From a very, powerful user interface. So as a user, I don't see systems, I don't see, builds, and I don't see any of that. This is all behind the scenes, okay? The behind the scenes is managed by IT, so that's what they know. And I just have this really simple interface to create an app, build my team, manage the bills, manage the resources I need to create my application, and automatically I can provision and take an app, take it from dev to QA to pre-pro to pro. Behind the scenes it does what it has to do, right? This is pretty much the future of what we want to do, because it bridges completely the IT world, which is managing what's happening behind the scenes, from the developers which are using this interface, okay? So I can manage a life cycle, open issues, etc., etc. So you can play, sorry for a second, I forgot that. So we have this online, right? Any of you can go and test this and play with it. So if you go to that URL called cloudpreview.wso2.com, it's still, as its name says, it's a preview. We'll be ready by end of June. This is when we want to officially launch it as a real service. But if you go there, you can already play with the system and see what you can do with it in terms of developing applications. We also have a very strong partnership with CodeEnvy. Have you heard about CodeEnvy? No? Well, you should check that. Okay, CodeEnvy basically is like Eclipse, but in the cloud. So it allows you to have an entire development environment in the cloud. So you're in here, you create a new app, you say edit, and it's going to start up an environment in the cloud for you. So you don't have to exit the cloud at all to do the entire development of your application. Okay? Okay, so I just wanted to give you a reference, and then I'll stop on this. Okay, that's a really interesting one. For the past year and a half, we've been working with Boeing. So the title of this session is Open Source for Real. If Boeing starts betting their digital airline processes on entirely an open source stack, I would say yes, it is. Okay, so what did Boeing do? They took all the stack, everything I talked about, so the entire PaaS, pretty much all the products that go on it. And what they want to do is integrate their systems, like very traditional systems, as you can imagine, extremely process driven. It's good for us. Like, if you want to change anything in Boeing, it takes like 9 approvals. It's crazy, but that's what's needed. That's very good. All right. But they want to be more agile in some of the things they're doing in terms of the first project they have done is plane maintenance. So planes are basically connected to the ground through what they call a data link. So if something is detected in the plane, that something is wrong, it will send a message back. So when basically the plane lands, you already have a problem which is raised inside the system. So now somebody from the maintenance team, they'll have all iPads, right? which are connected to the system. They'll go and take a picture, put their remarks on what they have seen of the problem, and that is all connected together. So what they've done is exactly what I said. They transform everything into services, they expose it all into APIs, okay? And what they've done is to say, okay, now what really we want, we have to share all this information with each of our customers, which are basically the airlines, right? And we want to allow the airlines to come and create applications leveraging the APIs we're exposing for them, right? So they're provisioning for the airlines an entire development environment based on Stratos, Private Pass, this App Factory product I was mentioning. They basically created their own App Factory to allow, let's say, Delta Airlines to create a maintenance application using the Boeing APIs which have been exposed. All of this is running in a cloud infrastructure, in the public cloud infrastructure. It's all based on our stuff. I encourage you to go to the next one. If you want to know more about this, it's good. Next. I've put you some links to the presentations. If you can send me a mail if you want to get it. Where the actual manager of the project can explain from A to Z what they've done. Also give you a good opportunity to see what you can actually do with this kind of product. So I know it's been really fast. There's a lot of information in 30 minutes. Sorry about that, but that's the way it has to go. It's like TED presentations, you have to get it. I hope that was clear. If you have any questions, I'll be here all day and all the morning, so please don't hesitate. And thank you for your... Molto grazie per l'attenzione.